11 lecture, right? You will complete one the coursework, big assignment, right? With 3 sections, right? Section A, you need to right, provide a executive summary, right, for the scenario, right? One big scenario for simulated workshop data, right? Management meeting, workshop meeting for management information system. Section B, you need to design and determine the requirement, right? And using some rule, we have the Moscow rule to we have the Moscow rule to prioritize the requirement, right? Classify categories of requirement, right? Which one is more important, which one less important. And the final one is section C. Okay, wait me a minute. Section C, legal, social, ethical, and professional issue, right? You will explain some example to prove the legal, social, ethical, professional issue already solved in your scenario, right? And this is your rating criteria. If you want to pass this one, you need to get this criteria, right? For some guy, if you aim to get over 60, you need to demonstrate most of things good understanding. For guy who want to achieve over 70, you need to show excellent time demonstration, right? Okay, that's overall. We will come back for lecture 1. Uma, you already come back online class?
Yes.
Okay. Try to keep up with class, right? Because sometimes I will pick up someone, right? If you want to go out for minutes, you need to take permission from me, okay?
Okay.
Right? I'm not so strict. If someone have something busy in around 10 or 15 minutes, tell me on the group chat, right? Okay, what is a requirement management? This one, the first lecture.
Teacher,
What?
can you recording the lesson?
You're recording for what?
Recording to see if sometime I'm very busy, I can see it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If you want to record, that's okay. No problem. But tell me, right? Okay. Okay. First one, what's the requirement management, right? The background to the system development. When you develop any information system, right? Some lots of information system get failure. I mean, the system is not fully support or help the user complete their task as they expectation, as their expectation, right? So many systems do not do what their user require, and finally, as a result, it will fall into disuse, right? Disuse means, right, the user do not want to use a system to complete their task anymore, and the system will be put aside, right? So in the information system management, right, when you want to implement the information system successfully, right, you need to achieve two important criteria: quality targets and productivity targets. What's the quality target and what's the quality target, right? In terms of quality target, right, it means the system, right, when you design, when you develop, it meets the user expectation. For example,
Teacher,
right? Okay.
your screen is not
Oh,
move.
okay. Just move. It's not move, right? It's
Yeah.
just explained by my word, right?
Okay.
That's why you need to focus on my speech, right? My speaking, right? Meets the user expectation. For example, um, if you want to use the online learning system, for example, right, to support your online learning, right, and you require many function, but when, right, the developer completes, right, master function do not, right, really support you, right, that make you unhappy with the system, right? That means, right, the quality target isn't achieved, right? It means, right, it doesn't meet the user expectation, right? I usually take the CMS as an example, right? A lot of feature in the CMS system is in terms of my opinions, is a bit disappointed, right? For example, right, I have to take attendance, student attendance, and also marking assignment into independent system. It should be integrated in only one system, right? So CMS is, right, doesn't meet the teacher expectation, right? I don't know from what is your expectation from you in the CMS system, right? You know, CMS system is, you know, the system you and me use for submit and marking assignment, right? The second criteria be deliver, sorry, be complete the system on time and within the budget, right? That's the productivity target, right? In terms of some with some guy already in managing a successful project, you only know, right, when you complete the project, if you want, if you consider a project is successful, right, you need to achieve the three criteria, and two criteria is on time and within the budget, right? Right, and to explain more specific, right, in terms of quality of target, right? Of course, the system need to meet requirement specification, right? This means, all right, before you design system, you also define a lot of requirement. Based on the user requirement, you will define the system requirement, the technical specification, and also the design requirement, right? And when the developer develop the system, right, they need to meet the system requirement, the design requirement, and also some specific specification, right? And of course, by okay, slide như chưa chuyển. Okay, sorry. I think wait me a bit. Okay. Okay. Why is okay? We may change project duplicates. Okay, what happened? Why? Okay, give me some minutes to fix some issue in PowerPoint. Okay, let's work. Okay, next. And with quality target, right? When you define the quality target, right, it will focus on some area like you need to understand, you have deeply understand about the business area, right? And you also need to define user requirement. Further, you also based on the user requirement, you will define the system requirement, the design requirement, and some specific specification and organization factor, right? Also, you need to take into consideration, right? I mean the organizational constraint, right? And some environmental factor is also affect your quality target, right? Right, that's when you have some problem or issue in the quality targets, it will lead to the unsuccessful the system, right? If you define the wrong user requirement, right, and it will lead to, right, wrong system requirement, several requirement in the system requirement list, right, and it could lead the user, right, unhappy with the feature of system, right? That's also leads to, right, an unsuccessful system. In other words, we can say it's the system get failure, right? The requirement analysis plays an important role because if you analyze wrong system, the wrong process of system, is also, right, results in, right, the failure. And in terms of productivity targets, right, the system need to be delivered on time and within the budget, right? This means, right, you need to use some appropriate technique in the management, in the managing a successful project, and also the research project to unit in BTech, right, program, right? You already know several technique or methodology, right, to complete the project. For example, the Gantt chart and WBS. Further, you also, right, in some the higher program in the master course, right? For example, you also know some difficult technique to help you complete the project on time and within the budget, right? I think two popular technique you already know is using the Gantt chart to build the schedule, and using as well as using the WBS, right, to define the work, the task in your project, right? And why you need to take care productivity issue, right? Because, for example, when you design the system, when you develop the system, maybe user want to change their requirement, right? If you do not apply the correct methodology, the correct model, how the user can change the requirement, how the developer can change their task, right? And sometimes if you define the requirement, it's not so realistic, right? Maybe the project implementation could be not feasible, right? And some the external event maybe happen, right? It's also change the requirement. So, right, a lot of issue, right? I mean, the productivity issue could be happen in the project implementation. So your mission, your task in project management, in the system management, you need to use some the model, right? Like waterfall, agile, right? And in lecture 1, I also explain for you two model, waterfall and agile, to solve some issue, right, in the information system management, right? And this one is some example, some statistic for the system failure, right, in the world, right? For example, because this some slide here is not so important, and I will go through quickly, right, and focus in some more important point, other point, right? The system failure, DTI report right? In UK, right? A half of over 66% the project fail because time scale, right? And over 50% is over budget, right? This is the DTI. This the statistic is from the DTI report in 1985, right? This means more than half of project get failure, right? So that's why you need to study requirement management. You need to understand some model, some technique. In other words, we can say we study some the methodology and framework to manage better requirement, to reduce, right, the risk, right, in the information system implementation, right? And also, right, KPMG, right, this report in 1990, right? They report that runaway system concerns over 30% of all the major projects, right? Some major effect of this system is loss of time, reduction of staff morale, loss of money, customer satisfaction, negative market image, right? Actually, you need to know it's runaway system. What's the runaway system? Runaway the system, it means the system over time or over budget, right? And in 1990, right, over 30% of project, right, the system, runaway. It means over budget or over time, right? And also some other statistic and figure from the KPMG report, right? Talk about the system failure. You can look at the slide. Okay, and some reason when a lot of reports, they survey and they summarize and they indicate, right, the percentage of the system failure is so high, and they have the less learn, right? Why do the system still fail? And some reason already have been indicated, right? Using many different methodology to support, right, the life cycle across a wide range of the difficult application, right? And also they try test and try to use a lot of technology and development in the different platform. And also, right, some organization, right, lack of application of one specific framework or model when they implement the project, right, or implement the system. In other words, that's good, right, need to get the system failure. And each organization have the different and unique issue, so they have all the needs and problem. So we need to define the correct issue, right? And define and using the appropriate framework, right? That's good, right? Reduce the risk of failure. And another reason could be the developer is still focused too much on the software development, but they, right, lacks focus on the requirement analysis. It means you only focus on coding, right? Too much, right? But you do not spend time to analyze what is the user requirement, which function, which service, right? The user want, right? You only create the system with some specific function without the survey and analyze, right, the system requirement, the user requirement, right? That's also to improve, right, the situation, to improve the issue, right? You need to take care about the human factor, right? The role of end user, right, need to be taken into consideration. This means the role of end user, right, play very important role, right? And you need to use some the method of framework, right? Is concerned and also focus on the user expectation, right? And also the role of analyst, right, also need to taken into consideration, right? Not only, right, the coder, the developer, the analyst also play really important role in the software development lifecycle, right? And when you analyze the system, it's not only the system requirement, you also analyze some human factor, right? That's also support, right? That also supports the system feature. For example, if, right, the system used for the international student, for example, because Greenwich University using for international student, also the domestic student, right? You need to create both English side and Vietnamese side on the website. For example, when you design the website, that's, right, the example for the human factor environment. And today, right, I will introduce to you or just remind you, right, to two more in software development life cycle. First one is waterfall. The second one is agile. I remember you already study, right, agile and waterfall in some unit. Okay, wait me. In some unit, right? Who can tell me, right? You already study agile and waterfall. Which unit you study agile and waterfall, right? Nguyễn Duy Anh.
Yes, I think the unit that visiting this methodology is I think the subject called the cloud computing and the managing a successful computing project.
Not at all. The main subject study Agile and waterfall is SDLC. You already study SDLC, software development life cycle? All of you?
Yes, I already studied. I forgot to speak it out.
Okay, all right. And managing a successful project and also cloud computing. Maybe some tutor will explain you about two models, right? But I remember in software development life cycle, right? Agile and waterfall, right? It's two important topic in this unit, and you can study Scrum and V-shape and several model as well, right? And in this one, requirement management is also right. Explain you again about right agile and waterfall. And who can tell me what's the waterfall as you understand it? Because you already studied it in the previous unit. I will pick up one. Maybe Nguyễn Thành Hưng. Right. Some good guy. Right. What's the waterfall?
Yeah, I'm here.
Mm.
Waterfall,
You can look at the material and explain. Right?
Yeah. Waterfall is the waterfall approach is a kind of software development management, which divide the whole process to 6 stages. It's include requirement analysis, system design, implementations, testing, deployment, and maintenance. And each stage will be processed sequentially, which is the first stage is a requirement analysis. After this, after the first stage is completed, and we've moved to the next stage, and so on.
Okay. Let me explain again about the waterfall models again to help you understand deeply. Okay, waterfall, right? Is very first process model, right? It's a near sequential lifecycle model, right? It means when we complete, you only can start the next phase or next step if you complete the previous state at all, right? Any phase in development process begin only if previous phase is complete. Remember, right? That's sequential life cycle model, right? And the phases do not overlap. I think all of you understand this word overlap. It means implementation, testing, deployment, system design requirement is independent phase and do not implement overlap, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 6 step. I usually use the word step, but more accuracy, we need to use the face, right? But step is also okay in a verbal explanation. But when you are writing in the when you have written in the reports, you should use the face, right? Right? In requirement, right? Requirement is gathering and analysis. Requirement analysis, right? In this one, you need to gather requirement and analysis. To gather requirement, you can use some the technique like, right? Interview, a survey, questionnaire, and you can organize a workshop, right? For what? The workshop for, right? To, right? Have the open discussion with user to get enough the requirement from user. Multiple type user can engage in the workshop, right? All the possible requirement of the system to be developed to capture in this phase, right? And also the document in a requirement specification document, right? Define user requirement includes the designing requirement, functional and non-functional. The second step, design. In this phase, of course, right? You based on the requirement, the system requirement, the functional and non-functional requirement, right? You will design plenty type of model, like data model, process model, behavioral dynamic model, right? And you also have multiple type model like wireframe, EID, right? DFD, right? Most of them you already know it in some unit like web development or database, right? This system design help in specifying the hardware and the system requirement, and also help, right, define the overall system architecture. Of course, in implementation, right, we coding or programming, right, with the input from the system design. The system is developed in the small program called unit, which are integrated in the next phase. X unit is developed and test for its functionality, right? Which referred as unit testing, right? The next step is testing, right? All the units developed in the implementation phase are integrated into the system after the testing units, right? In here, in the testing phase, integration and testing phase, you have multiple time and multiple activity related to test, find the bug, find the error, and fix it, right? Development of the system. In this step, deployment and maintenance, sometime waterfall, right? Two steps is combined one, and sometimes you can separate into deployment and maintenance. Of course, easy to understand. Deployment means you set up the software in the user environment, right? Deploy customer environment, or in other words, you release in the market. This means you can with the mobile application or mobile app, you can release into the CS, Google Play, or iOS Store, right? And maintenance is the final one, right? Remember, the next phase starts only after, right? Define the set of roles achieved or the previous. The name of waterfall. Mùi thác nước. The phase do not overlap. last to remind you about the waterfall model, right? Agile. With agile, right, is a combination of, remember this word, iterative and incremental process model. Explain. Iterative, in this word you understand it, loop or looping, right? It's like, you do some statement again and again, right? In this scenario, it means you do the same work several times again and again. Incremental, okay, you can go out. Incremental, it means you do some work and it will bigger over time, right? And in agile, right, look at the picture. You will separate the process into several incremental view, and each view we say iteration, right? Here iteration, you can see iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3, right? Các khối lặp. Okay, each iteration will last from 1 to 3 weeks. In some other material, some other book, when you read, maybe, right, it's defined 2 to 4 weeks. Có sách nói rằng là 1 đến 3 week, nhưng có sách hoặc có tài liệu nói rằng 2 đến 4 đều được chấp thuận, right? Iteration. Every iteration, right, involve a cross-functional team. Later I will explain what's the cross-functional team, right? And every iteration here, right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 5 or 6 steps, right? And do it again and again. For example, in the iteration 1, right, you planning, you requirement analysis, you design, you build, you test, right? And you generate that one, the prototype. You get feedback from customer, right? And based on the prototype here, you add more, right, requirement, right? You still planning, requirement analysis, design, building, and testing, right? And you also generate the prototype for customer, right? And when you get feedback from customer, right, each iteration here is last from 1 to 4 weeks, right? And when you do several iterations, finally you will get the final product, right? And it's already testing several times with customer. Of course, it will increase the customer satisfaction because we have many time to review, to test with the customer, right? At the end of each iteration, remember, working product or prototype will have shown, exposed to the customer, right? And some important stakeholder, and we will get feedback from them, right? To, right, improve the prototype, and we move to the next iteration based on, the prototype improvement. This is some of the pros and cons of agile model, right? Of course, with compared to agile model and waterfall model. What's the waterfall model? This one, right? One ups, right? One of advantage of agile is mean, right? You have many time to testing with customer. In the waterfall model, you have only one time, right? And of course, right, the quality of product, the customer satisfaction, right, in the agile model is much higher, right? And with the waterfall model, right, only one time. And the second thing with the with agile better than better than agile better than waterfall, right? Is if the user want to change the requirement, right? In here we have several iteration, and you can update the requirement, a change requirement in the next step or next iteration, right? But in the waterfall, you have no chance to come back the previous step, like system design, like coding, when the user wants to change in the testing phase, right? That's two important point compare agile compared to waterfall. Okay. Agile based on adaptive software development methods, right? Where why the traditional model, I mean, like waterfall is a predict approach, right? With predict team in traditional SDLC model is usually work if, right, you have detailed planning. This means in waterfall, right, if you have the detailed planning, the user requirement is clear, it's waterfall better, right? But when the user requirement is unclear or too ambiguous, right, agile much better, right? Remember, agile use adaptive approach where there's no detailed planning, right? And also the clarity of the future task is not so clear, right? Customer interaction, I mean, customer feedback in here, interaction, our customer, right, satisfaction is plays the central role in the agile methodology, right? Because here you look at the customer engage in many phases, and very first phase agile. And here is some the pro and cons of agile, right? And remember, with agile we have some disadvantage, like for some the complex project agile, where if you apply agile is quite high risk, because with the complex project it's not easy it's not easy to define exactly the user requirement, and also it's not to define clear planning, right? And also in agile model, it requires a cross-functional team member. This means the team member can do multiple types of job in agile, right? So it's not easy to find some team like that, right? And also agile depend on the customer interaction or customer participant. So if customer is not clear, right, the team can be wrong direction, right? Okay, and you can get some pro and con of agile. This material is not so hard, and this is okay because today is the first class, so I don't want to make you something hard. Okay, let me a bit. I think which option you want? We have we have two options. Option one, no break around 8:30, finish class. Option two, take break 15 minutes and we finish class around 8:45. Right? It depends on you and maybe today no break. Okay. And this is your tutorial today. This is the one scenario, right? Các bạn vẫn nhìn thấy màn hình đúng không?
Có.
Ok. Hiểu khi nào lúc nào mất màn hình bạn thấy. Okay, thằng nhìn.
Vâng.
Okay, this is the one scenario. This is the least Bell company, right? Read the scenario here, right? You will Scrum here is agile. Later, in the next lecture, you will understand more about Scrum. But in this one, in this scenario, Scrum is mean agile, right? Give me several reasons, right? This is scenario, right? About the least, that's about some reason why you can choose implement the project based on agile or waterfall, and give some reason, right? And you need to write on around more than half page or to one page to explain the reason. This one, like this one. Okay, look one. Okay, this one, you need to provide some reason based on the scenario, right? The lead, Elizabeth, you get some information as a reason, right? To justify why the Lee Lansbell company need to implement the project based on agile or waterfall. It depends on your opinion. Understand the tutorial?
Yeah.
Ok. Các bạn phải, đây là tutorial này. Các bạn, đây là một cái scenario, lúc nãy scenario đây này. được chưa? Ok, và bạn cung cấp cho tôi ít nhất là 3 lý do viết thành đoạn văn như thế này, được chưa? Và nếu mà có thời gian, được chưa, thì cho reference vào, được chưa? Nếu không thì có thể trong một thời gian ngắn thì thôi, có thể chỉ cần lý do thôi. Tại sao các bạn lựa chọn cái scenario này, cái dự án của công ty này triển khai theo Agile Waterfall, right? Lấy các thông tin và từ trong cái scenario này nha. Ok, okay, that's your tutorial today. I will upload